This is Super Yacht News with E. Sisman.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. All right, so we've got some updates on the sinking of this vessel that's named rather peculiarly 007. So first of all, confirm the location. I'd mentioned the island that it was on in the last video, but the actual place, the beach where it ran aground, was Kelowna Bay. So we have an eyewitness report from someone who was on another vessel, which I'm going to read out because it really explains effectively what happened. So he says, I was at anchor in Kelowna Bay last night. I can confirm that what you have reported is basically correct. Motoryacht 007 has arrived into the bay around midnight, aiming for the sandbar. You could recognize the level of the salon windows low above the water. I only realized those were salon windows. The lights inside were still on at that time after I compared what I saw to pictures online. I'll go back into that in a minute. She blasted her horn and aimed for the southern end of the beach, avoiding all the yachts anchored in the middle of the bay. She ran aground and started listing slowly to port. It went dark shortly after. There were 6 people on board and 2 dogs. And the people were safe and accounted for, and they were looking for 1 dog which could not be found. I don't know if they found it in the end. There was no noticeable pollution spill of a major size, although diesel could be smelled in close proximity. So that's what the eyewitness report said. Now, I can confirm the other dog was found because I saw a comment from a crew member on board saying that he had been there and he had rescued the 2 guests who were on board and their dogs, and a bird as well, apparently they had with them. Now, I've seen a lot of criticism of the captain and other people in the comments section of the last video and on other places like Facebook and stuff like that. Well, the thing is, when those comments happened, we didn't really know much about it. We still don't know that much about it. The salon windows being just above the waterline means that the crew deck and the engine room, they're completely submerged. I mean, this means that they're full of water, or they're, thereabouts. And also, I saw a lot of criticism of the captain. No, but we don't know who was on the bridge at the time of the incident. Could have been a watchkeeper. But the captain, from what I can tell from the eyewitness report, seemed to do everything right. Also, when I looked on some digital charts at this area, I'll put the chart on the screen. You can see that there's a section there that says it's poorly surveyed. Now, I don't know whether that vessel went through that area and that's the reason why they hit some rocks under the keel. I'm not sure. I had somebody sent me from one of the vessels in the area, sent me a screen grab of his phone with charts on it, and you can see that area at the top there shows information in there, whereas my chart shows poorly surveyed. So I'm not quite sure. That could be a contributing factor to this accident. So like I said, this happened around midnight, so pitch black. Also, what you can see on the photographs, which were sent to me here by somebody who obviously was there at the time, if you look at the bulbous bow, you can see that the bulbous bow has a hole in it, and that seems to be where the water ingress started. Now, I was speaking to somebody who used to be, who's a retired inspector for a classification company, and he sent me some details of the Turkish build regulations, and one of the things that's quite worrying is the regulation stipulates that they only need to have bulkheads at the forepeak, at the after peak, and to separate the engine rooms. So it effectively means that if those water ingress starts anywhere in front of the engine rooms, in front of the engine room, then the water is going to be uninterrupted and it's going to be able to fill that boat up. So that's quite a worrying situation. And this is written into the rules for all vessels built to Turkish standards, which is clearly not the same standards as other class regulations, where normally you have like 4 or 5 different watertight compartments in a vessel, depending on the size, of course. So anyway, the investigation will surely start. I found this video, someone sent it to me on TikTok, and you can see the vessel is listed over completely on there with the boom around it. And unbelievably, I can see people swimming around right next to it. And in fact, in some instances, they're actually touching the boom. Now that's to prevent pollution. If you're in the water and you actually swim into some fuel or some diesel, well, you've seen the pictures of when there's an oil slick and the birds are all covered in oil, right? So people getting that close to a vessel that is potentially leaking fuels is pretty stupid. Anyway, as we get any updates, we will bring it to you. Moving on to the next story now. This is quite a sad one, actually. And this is the owner of the reported owner of Motor Yacht Tatiana, which is a brand new super yacht just delivered in 2021. Cyrus Mistry. He's an Indian billionaire. He has died yesterday. He was involved in a car crash. I think he was the driver, and there was another person in the car with him. Well, there was 3 other people in the car with him, but there was one other fatality and 2 injuries in that car. So as I said, Motor Yacht Tatiana is an 80-meter or 262-foot super yacht delivered in 2021. At the time of his death, was worth an estimated $29 billion. Now, he's most famous for being a minority owner of the Tata Company, which is a big company in India, owned Jaguar Land Rover. But yeah, that's a very sad story. I don't have an awful lot of information other than what we've already covered there. If we get any more information about the yacht, because the ownership now of that yacht, maybe the family will decide to sell that vessel on. So we'll bring you more when we know it. I've got one more story now. This is a great bit of news for anybody who's in the industry, who's from the UK, and who's have been having the problems. I've also encountered these same problems since Brexit. So this is to do with visas in the EU. So I'll just give you a bit of an explanation of how it works. I'm sure anyone who travels a lot will know this. When you fly into a country, they stamp your passport when you go in. That's called being stamped in. And then when you leave, they stamp you out, right? And the stamp that they put in your passport, it shows whether you're going in or out. Now, when you go into the EU, you get stamped in the EU. So if I land in France, they stamp me in. If I travel by car to Italy, then obviously I don't go through any border control because there's open borders. And let's say I leave from Italy on a plane, they will stamp me out of the EU. Now, for a seafarer, when we fly into a country, let's say I fly into Italy, they stamp me in when I arrive on the plane. And then when I go to the vessel and join the vessel, I then immediately go to the maritime officers, and they stamp me out of the country because I'm joining a vessel. Now, that's generally how it works, right? So even though my vessel in Italy, let's say it's in the shipyard, I'm no longer in Italy because I'm on the vessel, right? Now, if I want to leave the vessel to go home on a plane, I go back to that office, I stamp back into Italy, and then when I leave, I stamp out at the airport. It's quite complicated. And that process is the way it's always been, right? But in Italy, because of this order by the EU, they said that if your vessel does not have a leaving date, then you will not be allowed to stamp out when you arrive in Italy, even though you're joining a vessel. And if your vessel's in the shipyard, right, then you can't stamp out. So then you're limited to 90 days out of 180, and then you have to leave after 90 days, and you're not allowed back for another 90 days. So that was causing big problems for British crew on vessels in Europe. And Italy were very, very stringent on this rule. Some other countries were not so much. Germany also was doing this, but they were also offering a long-term visa for people staying in the country. And that's what Italy has now done. And this is great news. Like I said, this has affected me and people I work with as well. And this is great news because now we'll be able to apply for a long-term visa, so we won't have those restrictions any longer. So that, like I said, very good news. It's been a big problem for us for the last couple of years because for me personally, I've been working in Italy for the last couple of years, and it has been a problem for all of us. So that is a great bit of news. It actually came through a couple of months ago, but I've not heard anything about this until very recently. But anyway, I've ended it on a bit of good news there. I hope you understood that story. It was a bit complicated with the stamping in and stamping out. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. If you've got any information about any of these stories or any other stories, please get in touch through the normal methods. You can get us on the About page of YouTube. You can get us on Instagram and Facebook Messenger, and you can get us on Threema. Be sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell for future notifications. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks very much, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.